Let's turn our attentions to the Middle East, shall we? Israel, just one aspect of what's going on in the Middle East, has attacked Beirut for the first time since it agreed to a ceasefire in the war with the Lebanese armed group Hezbollah. These are complicated situations. Over 2,000 people dead already. And of course, Israel's motivation is to protect Israelis on the other side of that Lebanese border. I'm joined by Dr. Dan Diker. You'll have heard him on the programme before, President of the Jerusalem Centre for Security and Foreign Affairs, who has advised Prime Minister Netanyahu's office. Do you still, or is that a former role?
It's a former role. As the President of the Jerusalem Centre for Security and Foreign Affairs, we're a separate entity, but we're in very close touch with the Prime Minister's Office of the Foreign Ministry and other ministries, as we have complete flexibility and ears and eyes on the ground, but we are independent.
Well, I'm very keen to... There's lots of different aspects that we need to talk about, because when we talk about war in the Middle East, it's a splintering affair at the moment, isn't it? Now, on the situation in Lebanon and between Israel and Lebanon. A couple of things. That attack on Beirut, I know that it's been mainly concentrated in the south of the country since the ceasefire.
Yes.
What prompted? Do you know what prompted that attack in Beirut? What was it?
The Iranian Hezbollah, and I emphasize the word Iranian regime Hezbollah, because to many Europeans, Hezbollah has always been fashioned as a Lebanese resistance organization, which it is not. It is operated, funded, supplied, instructed, and financed by the Islamic Republic. And this is very, very important, because there's a tremendous amount of misinformation and disinformation, Sheila, that is running around the very good people in the European media discourse.
There is a political element to it that has a foothold in Lebanese politics.
Very much. They're a hybrid organization in the sense that they are very much an Iranian-backed terror organization, but they have a very deep footprint and control in the Lebanese parliament. And they do, and as we know, Lebanon has a very complex social fabric where there is approximately a third of the Lebanese public is Shia, and many of them have highly integrated family connections with the Hezbollah, and therefore that gives Iran a direct hold over them.
Let me ask you about the Lebanese government itself then, in between. It's almost sandwiched between these two things, Israel and Hezbollah. How confident are you that since the ceasefire, and we'll come back onto some of those attacks in a moment, but how confident are you that since the ceasefire, that relationship between Israel and the Lebanese government is one that can strengthen mutually to rid itself of Hezbollah, to rid both countries of Hezbollah?
Well, that's the aim, an excellent question. It's a very, very difficult question. And one of the answers is, first of all, the concept in the West, whether it's the UK, the United States, or the continent, the European continent, of ceasefire does not hold when it comes to Hezbollah. For Hezbollah, the term is hudna, which means a temporary respite of violent operations until such time that they recover sufficiently in order to continue attacking Israel and the United States and the UK. By the way, it's very, very important to understand.
People accuse Israel of the very same. I mean, Benjamin Netanyahu's post just today about this particular attack in Beirut is, we're going after these terrorists, we're going after Hezbollah, but you know, and I know, and the world knows, that it isn't just Hezbollah that gets killed in some of those attacks. And people are still very mindful of the death toll in Gaza. They're mindful of the 2,000 plus dead pre-ceasefire, the 120 or so people who died in this attack. Is there a danger that the very thing you've accused Hezbollah of is what Israel is seen to be doing?
No, it's a completely different situation. I will say, and I would invite all of our listeners and our viewers to check what I'm saying. Israel does more than any other country in the free world to warn innocent public to leave the area. And the reason that Israel has targeted the Dahya area is that is exactly where the Iranian regime Hezbollah is ensconced. They ensconce themselves by kindergartens, by hospitals, by mosques, by residential buildings, just the way that Hamas does in Gaza.
All the more reason perhaps to be extremely judicious about whether to strike or not. And I absolutely accept the threat to Israel from Hezbollah. You won't get any doubt about that from me here. But is there a danger that in trying to protect Israel strategically, security-wise, not you personally, but one damages...
I feel very safe here in London, I was saying.
Okay. One damages Israel's sort of moral authority. That's happened in Gaza.
But this is unfortunately, pictures lie, unfortunately. We used to say pictures tell a picture's worth 1,000 words. That was the old adage.
But dead bodies don't, do they?
No, they don't. But I would just draw our attention. Do you remember back in World War II in the Battle of Dresden, how many innocent civilians died when the British, the great people of Great Britain, the United Kingdom, were fighting the Nazi regime? We are today fighting the Nazi regime of our time. This is a regime that mass murdered 50,000 of its own people in 48 hours. This is a regime that has no problem in mass murdering Arab Muslims in order to assert their own regime survivability. So I just want to put an exclamation mark here, is that Israel drops leaflets, makes cell phone calls. Israel has made cell phone calls to every single member of the public in Gaza. And let's remember, Gaza, Hamas are the same Sunni terror organization, controlled, financed, supplied, and instructed by the Iranian regime. And this is exactly the dark shadows of the Iranian terror machine.
And I ask this question not thinking for a second that Israel is solely responsible for protecting the peace deal. Of course it's not. But isn't there an argument that striking Beirut, for the reasons you've just described, threatens not just the newly found and very nervous peace between Israel and the Lebanese government, but the Iran-US talks as well? This
is precisely what the Iranian regime is seeking to do. You have proven exactly the point that the IRGC...
What have I fallen for?
You haven't fallen for anything. You've made a very, very important statement, an excellent question. But what I would like to do is contextualize and clarify exactly what's going on. The Iranian regime, IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, has bet the farm, if you will, on the isolation of the Jews. Isolate Israel, blame Israel for everything. That is why the Hezbollah, which at the instruction of Iran has for years years, decades, ensconced themselves in the middle of Beirut. And that is where their command and control is. That is where they're terrorizing. It's not only Israel's security as an abstract. We're talking about the intention of Hezbollah on October the 7th of 2023 was a mass invasion over the Israeli border to murder as many children and women as possible. And that's what Hamas did. By the way, Hamas killed hundreds of Israeli children and women on October the 7th. And that's what Hezbollah is doing. So they must be stopped because there is Hezbollah in London. There is Hezbollah in London. There were attacks. There were 6 major attacks in 2026, Sheila. Some of them were executed by Hayy, which is an Islamic organization wedded to the Iranian regime, and Hezbollah as well.
And I don't doubt it's the mission of Iran, Hamas, and Hezbollah to make sure everybody blames Israel for everything. I don't doubt that for a second. I don't blame Israel for everything in these scenarios, these dreadful scenarios that we've been seeing for years. But I still ask the question: don't those attacks on Beirut, those latest attack on Beirut, doesn't it threaten the peace deal? Even if you put the wider Iranian picture to one side and look at that, the hope that is inherent in what's going on between Israel and Lebanon at the moment is immense, isn't it?
It is immense, and at the same time, President Yosef Aoun has publicly reached out to President Donald Trump and has publicly allowed his ambassador to Washington to meet with the Israelis for the specific reason that the Lebanese government has not been in charge of its own country since 1982. The Iranians have been in charge, dominated, terrorized Lebanon.
What power do they have to change that?
Sorry?
What power do the Lebanese, have to change that?
The power they have is to empower and enable Israel to do the work that the Lebanese army is not able to do, nor, frankly, and I regret to say this, nor are they willing to do it. And the reason is because of what we talked about just 5 minutes ago, the extraordinary complex fabric of Lebanese society. So basically, they are a state. The Iranian regime has built a state within a state in Lebanon, and they are holding the Lebanese people hostage and hoping that Israel, through its kinetic military necessity of eliminating Hezbollah, and they're actually doing the work that the Lebanese security forces should be doing, and they're unable to do it. And we know for years that they've been unable to do it. It's exactly what the terror masters in Iran are hoping for.
Israel, the nation of Israel, has many enemies. Don't need to tell you that. I'm not one of them, far from it. But Israel, the government of the moment, the leadership of the moment, I do have, and many other people do have, some problems with the conduct, the approach. I'll give you an example. Itmar Ben-Gvir, on his birthday, is given a birthday cake
with a noose,
with an image of a noose on it. Now, again, it was a nod to that legislation around the death penalty, just for Palestinians in particular circumstances. How does that contribute in any way to the long-term peace and safety of Israel and its neighbours? How?
Well, first of all, it's an excellent question. I actually, as a great patriot of the Jewish and democratic state, share your observation, your critique of Ben-Gvir. I think it's awful. And I think that, first of all, Ben-Gvir is one particular individual. It does not serve anyone's interest for him to have a noose on the cake.
It doesn't serve anyone's interest for him to be in the government, does it? Other than Benjamin Netanyahu
no,
staying
it serves
in power?
it's the democratic vote. It's the democratic vote of the people of Israel. I'll remind you, and all of us, that there are 2 million non-Jewish Israelis, the majority of them Muslim Arab Israelis, who have exactly the same rights as every Jewish Israeli, including the democratic right to vote. And I will share with you, without naming names, that there are some, even in the Arab Muslim Israeli minority constituency, that actually vote for him because they realize that other than the very distasteful image that we talked about, and I'm in full agreement with you, and many Israelis are in complete agreement.
Do you share my disgust? And the reason I use that word, and I really did feel disgust when I saw it, is our own Prime Minister last week was talking rightly about the level of antisemitism in the country and what we as a nation, every single one of us, should be doing about it. He alluded to the paraglider imagery that's on some of these.
You mean Prime Minister?
Our Prime Minister, yes.
Starmer.
Keir Starmer. And said if you see somebody wearing that, they are glorifying what happened on October the 7th. I would agree with him, and we should do something about it. I think the noose is precisely the same. It's glorifying an expression of Israeli power that doesn't help.
What it is glorifying, let's put it in context for a second, because I do very much appreciate your question. It's very much in place. The noose is meant to signify that those who mass murdered, raped, tortured, and kidnapped in an unprecedented move since the Nazi regime era in the late 30s and 40s into 1945, they would be subject to the death penalty if that were decided. The death penalty itself is a very controversial issue in the West, unquestionably, and many European...
And it's only been used twice, I think,
it hasn't been used
Israel,
frequently. But the question that I would ask you, what would you do if your children were raped and tortured by the hundreds in a completely unprovoked attack by an apocalyptic Islamic organization and I'll remind us, there have been 20 attempts on UK soil, mostly in London, since 2022 by the same Iranian-backed organizations that we're talking about now.
Again, you said it to me kindly twice. It's a good question. What would we do? I would hope, and I haven't been tested in this way, so I can't say for sure, but I would hope, our nation hasn't been tested recently in this way, but I would hope that what we would do is absolutely deal with those people judicially, without a doubt. Maybe even argue the death penalty in our country. That's a political discussion and decision to be made at some point, let's say, in this scenario. But what I would hope that my political and other leadership didn't do was play these disgusting games, which I think that cake was. I mean, it may have been deemed to be a private joke amongst the people present, I don't know. But what it's like. Everything goes around the world these days.
It does.
The reason I'm exercised by it and disgusted by it is a number of things, but given I'm talking to you, it doesn't help Israel. It doesn't help peace.
Nothing seems to help Israel, Sheila. Let me be very clear. The world prefers dead Jews. That's the way, and unfortunately in the free world today, I mean, you have a situation that is completely intolerable, in which the Jewish people have a state that is the size of Maryland in the United States, that is the size of Belgium in Israel, surrounded by and attacked by, unprecedented in modern political history, 7 different fronts with the Islamic religiously fueled determination to mass murder, eradicate the Jewish people for the second time, in 80 years. That is the intention. So for us to focus on a very inappropriate birthday cake is really, I think, in the context of what we're talking about, which is we are in a war of civilization, which is barbarism. And I fear that His Excellency, Prime Minister Starmer, who is in a very difficult position within the British people, are hardly pleased, according to the numbers I saw this morning, with Prime Minister's functioning. I'm not sure how much of it is foreign policy and more of it is economic policy. However, the Western Alliance and the United Kingdom are under attack. Israel has been fighting on the front lines of this barbaric, messianic, apocalyptic determination to wipe out the West. They said it in 1979. They said it when Mr. Blair was Prime Minister. They've said it with certainly when Prime Minister Sunak was Prime Minister. They are determined to wipe out any kind of Western presence, certainly anywhere in the Middle East, and they're here in the West. So I think that it would do justice to our viewers and our listeners not to over-focus on one very problematic expression in Israel. Israel overall is a victim. It's not the...
And I haven't over-focused on that in this conversation, and the reason I asked it is that I want Israel to survive and thrive. I think Israel absolutely should exist and survive and thrive and not be as under pressure as it is. And that's sometimes, as you know, a difficult thing to say these days.
It is.
But again, for my money, people like Ben Gvir drag you down as a nation.
Yeah, listen, first of all, you're absolutely right. Everything is fought over the iPhone and the cell phone. This is the new war where you can mobilize 7 billion people in 30 seconds. So your point is well taken. And what I'm here to do as a student of, or perhaps an expert in Middle East and Western affairs, is to really try to zoom out, always to create the proper context. Because the proper context is that if the United Kingdom, which was brilliantly brave during the Iran-Iraq war, when Iran was determined to wipe out Iraq and Iraq-Iran, and the United Kingdom had a very robust navy in the Persian Gulf, in the Straits, saying, we must keep the Straits open for international shipping. And, I know that in Jerusalem we asked the question, where is the United Kingdom? President Trump's asking the same question. The United Kingdom has always been a strategic and moral example for the rest of Europe and the free world. And one of my great heroes, Winston Churchill, who took on the Nazi regime with the greatest of courage. This is the type of courage we need today. And I think that it is that Israel is, with Jewish and non-Jewish soldiers, men and women both, risking their lives to eliminate this Iranian threat on the West. This is a threat on the West. And I will say, I invite anyone to be in touch with me, to be in touch with us at the JCFA, to see the types of preventative actions that Israel takes, leaflets, cell phone calls, public disclosure, public announcements in Arabic before making any attack against our common enemies.
Well, I'll make sure people know the name in full of the organisation if they want to take you up on that offer.
Absolutely, with the greatest of pleasure.
Dr. Dan Diker, President of the JCFA, the Jerusalem Centre for Security and Foreign Affairs. Thank you for coming in and joining us. It's 2:52.